a devoted fan, and a plugged-in reporter. There is no better way to talk about hoops than that. Mia O'Brien and Mitch Northam have you covered for the W, the NCAA, Unrivaled, and anything else that involves a ball
I forgot to put my phone on
board. This is the Women's Basketball Podcast.
Shit, my bad.
Honestly, I feel like it kind of works to have Mitch Northam in black turning his phone off Do Not Disturb because he's recording on his phone here on the Women's Basketball Podcast on this Monday, January the 19th. There he is, Mitchell Northam of USA Today. We're working on the holiday, folks, because we've got women's basketball taking place today. The Coretta Scott King Challenge Classic up in Newark at the Rock. We've got thoughts on that. We've got thoughts on Iowa State, who just keeps on losing games. Some thoughts on the WNBA CBA negotiation. Maybe not so much there because we don't have as updates like we thought we would 1 week ago, the last time we spoke to you here on OG Triangle Media. But we do have thoughts with the transfer portal window moving. We have thoughts on the coaching hot seat and who could be gone in college hoops. So much to get into. First things first, though, Mitch. Happy Martin Luther King Day. How are you? How did you enjoy your Monday?
Yeah, shout out to MLK. It was good. My wife was off today, and she wanted to take a nap. So I was on daddy duty, which meant that I just fed the baby and put her down for a nap, too. And she slept for 3 hours, and it was great. So
Love that. Love that. That's why you can overcome all of the technology challenges, because we have a baby who is well rested, ready for the national championship game, and ready for this week's edition of the Women's Basketball Podcast. As I alluded to, we did have games on this Monday holiday, and so want to run through a couple of them. One of them is still currently in progress. Excuse me, words are hard. Mitch, I'm just going to go through these scores.
Is it still in progress?
Well,
we know how it's going to end.
We do. We're saving that one for last. Before we get to this week's starting five, just going to run through these games, and I want a one sentence on each of them thought from USA Today's Mitch Northam. First and foremost, number 12, Ohio State, 12 or 7. Why are numbers and words so hard for me today? Number 12, Ohio State, 71. Number 9, TCU, 69 at the Coretta Scott King Classic.
This was a game where Olivia Miles was missing her Robin to her Batman. Marta Suarez just 2 points, 1 of 6 from the floor, and no one else really stepped up to help her. And so Ohio State gets out of there with a win.
A goodie in the Ivy League. Number 20, Princeton, 82. Harvard, 79 in OT.
Princeton is far and away your Ivy League favorite. I think even if they lose Ivy Madness, they get an at-large bid to the tourney.
Here is, in our opinion, the game of the day. And honestly, I don't think it's our opinion anymore. It's a team that we're going to talk about throughout the course of today's program. Number 5, Vanderbilt, one of 2 undefeated teams remaining in the country. 72, number 7, Michigan, 69.
Shea Ralph, National Coach of the Year.
Michaela Blake's National Player of the Year. We're going to talk about it. Don't you worry, folks. And finally, the game that Mitch is referring to. It just wrapped up in the third quarter. UConn, the other undefeated team left in the country, 59, Notre Dame 35.
Notre Dame currently covering the spread, which was 29.5 points.
And that, of course, was part of last week's Making Money with Mitch picks. We will have a new 3-pack for you a little bit later today in the program. We also will keep you posted on the final score from that game is currently in progress as we record on this fine Monday night. To this week's starting five, really excited to dive into a couple of these games that you got to attend in person, Mitch, beginning with what many billed as the game of the week as South Carolina hosts Texas. You were in the building. Big picture, your thoughts on that game from earlier last week.
Yeah, one just kind of like a scene setting thought. It's been a while.
Speaking of scene setting, I probably should have included the final score. Number 2, South Carolina 68, number 4, Texas 65.
Yeah, close game there at the end. It's been a while since I've been to a handful of games in South Carolina here and there over the years. I was at their season opener this season against Grand Canyon, NCAA tournament in 2024 when they just erased North Carolina in the second round. But it's been a while since I've been to like a marquee prime time, everybody is watching matchup there. Probably not since, I think this was the first time South Carolina beat UConn, which was in 2020, January 2020. It would have been Aaliyah Boston's freshman season. And I just remember that atmosphere being electric. Then, of course, we never saw what that South Carolina team was truly capable of because COVID canceled the NCAA tournament. All that said, that is, when that building is sold out and rocking for a marquee matchup, like that is one of the coolest environments in women's college basketball, especially like leading up to tip off when everybody is doing the sandstorm, thing. It was just really cool. It was awesome. On to the actual game. I have a couple just kind of broad takeaways. Number one, I am concerned about Texas's ceiling because they can't shoot threes at all.
That has been an issue throughout Vic Schaefer's tenure in Texas. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And it didn't bite them last year, but I think in this game, and I can't remember if we talked about this or not. I know we did kind of a keys to the game sort of roundtable over at USA Today that I did with Sydney Henderson and Megan Hall. And I said that, the first match of this game, both teams shot horrendously from three-point land. And I thought that if one team shot decently, that could be the difference of the game. And in this one, Tessa Johnson hits 3 3-pointers, and then Medina Okote hits a ridiculous one that no one saw coming. And so South Carolina shot well enough from three, and oh, by the way, won the game by 3 points. And I thought that was the difference. And if you go look at some of the numbers this season, so here's a stat. Percentage of points from three is a stat that you can find on Her Hoop Stats. Would you like to know where Texas ranks in the country in that statistic?
Oh, boy.
362nd. There are 363 Division I women's basketball teams in the country. So they get 13.5%.
Who's 363 then? I have to ask. Who's last?
Oh, I don't know. I'm just looking at Texas's page right now. They are dead last in 3-point rate, which is the rate that you take 3-pointers. I don't think they were this bad at it last year. I would have to go and look. Let me look real quick. Actually, they were pretty terrible at it. They're pretty much the same. 362nd in 3-point rate, 360th in points from three. Last year, I think they got some bracket luck, and they didn't really run into a team capable of hitting a bunch of 3-pointers and kind of ousting them in that way. I think that on the right night, TCU could have done that to them. But TCU was not in a position to do that to them last year in the Elite Eight, and so Texas went to the Final Four. I kind of wonder if Texas is a number 1 seed, and we're going to get into some bracketology later, what if they run up against Oklahoma State in the second round as a 1 versus 8 matchup? And Oklahoma State with, Timmer and Girardi and some of them, if they just come out and light them up. And if Texas can't keep up or can't stop it, then what are we talking about here? I think this is going to hurt them at some point.
Great segue by bringing up the Cowgirls out there in Stillwater, Mitch, because number 2 in this week's starting 5. Oh boy. Final score. The Oklahoma State Cowgirls 86. The Iowa State Cyclones 58. Oklahoma State only shot 38% from long distance. Iowa State drops its 5th straight after starting 14-0 in the 2025-2026 season. Audi Crooks over the last few weeks. This is her point total, folks. When they lose to Baylor, she is not even the leading scorer. Jada Williams was the leading scorer with 28 points. Against Cincinnati, she had 23. Against West Virginia in that loss, 22. Colorado, 17. Against OK State, 15. Do you see where I'm going with this, Mitch? The blueprint is out. Someone who we were so excited to sprinkle all those futures and say National Player of the Year, dang gummit. All of a sudden, not only is fading fast, but her team is out of the AP poll. Has to be at this point, right? I didn't look if they are indeed, but they were 19th last week. They fell 8 spots.
They are unranked.
They are unranked as of now, a team that many thought could be a top 10 outfit. And this is all because they lose Addie Brown for an undisclosed amount of time. And all of a sudden, it's like none of the pieces work together. And I watched this Oklahoma State game, and I had some friends in Iowa, including our sometimes co-host Rebecca Kopelman, texting me, who didn't get a chance to watch. And they were like, what the heck is happening? Like, this, like, no offense, but like, it's Oklahoma State that's an improved squad that we've talked about a ton here on this show. But like, it's not like they lost by 30 to Texas or South Carolina or UConn. They lost by almost 30 to Oklahoma State, and it looked like an uninspired bunch that, yes, don't want to play defense, and that's been a conversation for Iowa State for the last few years, and they looked like they didn't want to be there, and that's a little concerning for me, especially as we progress through the month of January.
Yeah, it's wild. I think when the new year started, we looked at Iowa State and thought, okay, Audi Crooks is a top 3 contender for player of the year. And Iowa State is going to host NCAA tournament games in the first weekend. And now I don't think either of those things are true because of this losing streak that they've gone on, where, quite frankly, in some of these games, like, they have looked uncompetitive, against Oklahoma State and against West Virginia at times. And I mean, losing games that they, you can excuse, I think, losing to teams that are definitely going to be NCAA tournament teams like an Oklahoma State and West Virginia, but losing to Colorado and Cincinnati is kind of inexcusable. And
by the way, the loss that started this whole thing, Mitch, was at the buzzer to Baylor at home.
Sure.
And I'll excuse that one too. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's progressively gotten worse, and you wouldn't expect a buzzer beater at the hands of Talia Scott to be the straw that broke the camel's back, but all of a sudden this thing has tumbled like a deck of cards.
Yeah, and I think what we're finding out is that while Audi Crooks is a supremely talented offensive player, 2 things. She leaves a lot to be desired on the defensive end. I think if you watch Iowa State closely, you can kind of tell that they're trying to hide her on defense. And there's just work that needs to be done on that end of the floor for her. And the other thing I think we're finding out is that while Audi Crooks is the best offensive player, one of the best in the country, the best at Iowa State, I think Addie Brown really was the glue of this team. And the one that kind of made everything, we might call her the bus driver, not the best player, but the person who kind of makes things go and the orchestrator and knows how the rhythm of the ball needs to flow and all those things. And without her, they've just looked a mess, frankly. And like the other pieces around Audi Crooks are just not getting it done. So I don't know how to fix this without waving a magic wand and bringing Addie Brown back into the lineup from her injury.
They will have a rematch with Cincinnati Wednesday night. Then they host Arizona before traveling to previously undefeated Texas Tech next week. Number 3 in this week's starting 5, I mentioned Mitch went to a ton of great games this past week, and that was including Sunday's game at Reynolds Coliseum.
I also went to a not great game, not this one. Sunday night.
You went to 2 games?
I went to Duke, Georgia Tech after Louisville, NC State, because they were far enough apart in the tip-off times where I can make both. So Marissa Sisk and I from her Hoop Stats went, and that was not a good game. Duke just
shout that out there.
Clean the floor with Georgia Tech. Anyways, Louisville, NC State was a really good game. However, I think what we have kind of been saying about these 2 teams all season sort of came to fruition, especially in overtime. I think Louisville is a team. Well, Louisville is a team. They play like a team. There are a lot of different players that can do a lot of different things, and it's not a your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn kind of thing. It's, oh, you have the hot hand? Okay, we're going to keep feeding you the ball, and we're going to ride it out. Against Notre Dame, that was Raina Scott. Against NC State, that was not Raina Scott. She only had 7 points. But it was Amari Berry, who had 33 off the bench. It was in overtime, McKinley Randolph hitting a kind of crazy 3-pointer that I don't think anybody expected her to hit, and then getting another couple baskets here and there. They're a group that does all the little things right. They get a lot of bench points. They do a good job, for the most part, of not turning the ball over. They had 13 turnovers against NC State, but 6 of those were from Raina Scott. But they had to keep Raina Scott on the floor because she's such a good defender. There's a lot I think to like about Louisville, and they have really, really improved, I think, from the start of the season to now. And then, the players that were there last year to now, like you look at Amari Berry's jump and McKinley Randolph's jump, and Istan Boogaloo, I think is how you say her last name. I might have just butchered that.
Didn't we say we had a nickname for her?
We can just call her EI.
Yeah, we could call her EI. I thought we had given her a name, but yeah,
she's improved a lot as well. And it's just a cohesive unit, and they look like they like playing with each other, and you can see the chemistry. Whereas like NC State, watching this game yesterday, and we get into the fourth quarter, I'm like, doesn't really feel like Tilda Trigger's doing a lot. And I look at the live stats, and she has 0 points and has taken 2 shots. And then right after I say that, she hits a 3. But she still only finishes with 3 points, 1 of 3 shooting from the floor. And Louisville does not.
And that one basket being a 3-point shot where she's the type of player that she's making her living in the paint. Doesn't really make sense.
Louisville does not have anybody on their team who is 6'6", 6'7", capable of guarding Tilda Trigger like one-on-one. And Louisville did a good job of like denying her the ball. I just don't understand like why NC State isn't trying to use her like Elisa Cunane. And Wes Moore knows more about basketball than I ever will. And maybe he's seen something in practice that tells him Tilda Trigger is not Elisa Cunane. Okay, fine. But at the end of the day, you have a massive size advantage, and we've seen Tilda Trigger use her skill and, put the ball in the basket from the paint and from the 3. I don't understand why she's only getting 3 shots. That is something that should not happen ever again. But it's another game where I just felt like you were kind of living and dying with Zam Jones and Camille Pierre making big shots. And, Zoe Brooks did have the chance to win it late. She fumbled the ball, had a turnover. I just think there's still a lot of room to grow here for NC State, and a lot of room for them to figure it out. And I just don't know if they will this season. I think this is an NC State team that we kind of have to see what the bracket draw is going to be. But if they get a bad matchup, like they could go home in the first weekend of the tournament, which is not something that Wes Moore teams typically do. And I just kind of don't see them being super competitive down the stretch in ACC play against the top teams in the ACC. Yes, they took Louisville to the brink in this game. I don't know if they're going to do that against Duke. The good thing for NC State is that like there's kind of this messy middle for the ACC this year, which by the way, they're a part of. NC State was down by almost like 20 points at Wake Forest on Thursday night. Now they ended up coming back and winning and whatever, but I don't remember a Wake team ever being up on an NC State team in recent years. It's just I just don't really see it within this NC State team in terms of meeting the standards that previous Wolfpack teams have set.
Louisville is up to number 8 in this week's AP poll. By the way, Triangle friends, don't worry. Duke is number 21. They're back, folks.
That's right.
There is representation in the AP poll from North Carolina's D1 women's college basketball teams. Let the record show. While you were at that overtime thriller on Sunday, I was locked in a little bit later in the day on LSU Oklahoma, which is number 4 in this week's starting 5. Mitch, final score, the Tigers, number 6 previously in the AP poll, 91. The number 13 Sooners, 72. We discussed it last week, this Oklahoma team. What do we make of them? By the way, LSU is still number 6 in the AP poll. Oklahoma tumbles to 16. They have now lost 3 straight. The Sooners have. They've dropped matchups to a ranked Ole Miss, a ranked Kentucky, and now this ranked LSU team. Before I give you my takeaways from this one, which is mostly about LSU's depth, which I think was on full display. In particular, I'm sorry, Jada Richard, I wasn't familiar with your game, the first 20-plus game of her 2025-2026 season. If they can get that sort of production out of her, let alone from that trio of guards, even if Mylasia Fulwiley is coming off the bench, that headline this LSU team, all of a sudden I'm buying back into Kim Mulkey's side, whereas I continue to have questions about Oklahoma as they work through the growing pains of Aaliyah Chavez's first season of college ball. And so, Mitch, for you, which of the two sides did this final score and this game say more about?
Oh, I definitely think it said more about LSU, and I thought it was a really impressive road win for them. Oklahoma's a good team this year. I thought that they could be a matchup problem for a team like LSU, with Regan Beers and, Aaliyah Chavez. But again, it was another game where Aaliyah Chavez, did not shoot all that well. And I don't know if we would say she's in a little bit of a slump or if teams just have film on her now and they know how to defend her. It could be, one of those two things. And Regan Beers just had 10 points in this game. I think it was a great showing for Flau'jae Johnson. Would like to see this stat line out of her more consistently. Same goes for Jada Richard. I'm still not really sure what to make of the Mylasia Fulwiley.
I think it's who she is. Honestly.
Yeah, I think, this is the player that Dawn thought she was. And it turns out this is the player that Kim thinks she is too. Like, you come off the bench and you do your thing a little bit, but ultimately, if
you don't play defense, you're not going to start.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if, I'm not predicting anything or reporting anything, but if she's somebody who transfers again and maybe transfers down to, kind of pulls a Diamond Johnson, transfers down to a mid-major where she all right, hey, you're going to start and you're going to play 35 minutes a game and we're going to let you put up numbers. And, if it's a league like the MEAC or SWAC, that's good enough to get us into the NCAA tournament because you are who you are and you're super athletic and there's no one in this league that can guard you. So I wonder if that is potentially in her future, but we'll see.
That stat line from Flau'jae, by the way, 23 points in 34 minutes, including 9 of 19 from the floor, 3 of 5 from three-point range, 10 boards. Yes, she had 3 turnovers, but she also had 3 assists, 1 steal, 3 big blocks. I just thought that, especially in transition, both offensively and defensively, much improved. The fact that she is a guard who can get you multiple offensive rebounds a night if you need her to. She had 3 in this one of those 10 boards. It's a game changer. And I think that this is a player who, well, yes, maybe you're not going to get the same sort of production every single night. The fact that she has evolved on the defensive side gives me hope for her pro career. Not that she wasn't already going to have one, but I do think she's taken another step here in her senior season.
Yeah, I saw Bob Starkey had a lot of good things to say about Flau'jae after the game, and so did Jenny Baranczyk, who, by the way, was on Kara Lawson's Team USA staff with Flau'jae at the America. And, so I do think...
They dapped it up. They've buried whatever Jenny and Flau'jae posted.
Yeah, I don't think there is any beef between Jenny and Flau'jae. They both seem to, Jenny said what she said, and Flau'jae quoted it and was like, "Much love for you" or something like that. So I definitely think that Flau'jae will be a pro, but she's kind of one of those prototypical big guards. I think we just need to see the consistency from her.
Shout out to Peyton Verhulst, by the way, for Oklahoma, who had 5 threes in this game, and also Regan Beers' brother, who committed to Oklahoma on the football side over the weekend.
Is he also a tight end?
He looks like he could be. Okay. I don't know what position off the top of my head that he plays. While you tell us the very latest from the transfer portal, Mitch, I'm going to pull up that picture just so that we have the visual.
Okay, great. We're going to do hot seat first, and then we're going to get into the portal. I'm gonna run through some of these real quick. I put these in my weekly women's basketball notebook today, USA Today. The 2 jobs that I heard about the most over this past weekend, we have one in the Big Ten and one in the Ivy League, Penn State and Yale. I would count on both of those jobs opening this season. So Penn State, Carolyn Keeger has been the coach of the Nittany Lions since 2019. She has never made an NCAA tournament. And in that stretch, Penn State has twice recorded its worst record in Big Ten play in program history. In her first season and last season, they went 1-17 in Big Ten play. She was really good at Marquette. She went to 3 NCAA tournaments at Marquette, but since getting to Penn State, she's won just 40% of her games. For some reason, Penn State gave her a contract extension in 2022 after an 11-18 season. Last year, they sort of had to issue like a public vote of confidence in her and basically said like, oh, she's going to be back next season. Okay, cool. The results haven't been better. They are now 7-12 and 0-8 in conference play, and that is despite getting the product on their team, and also luring Gracie Merkel back after she briefly transferred to Maryland. The other stuff with Carolyn Keeger is there was a report, I think this was November 2024, so before last season, about some allegations about bullying and player, misconduct and stuff like that. And some of her former players talked on the record about that stuff, and she was able to kind of weather that. I'm not sure Penn State is going to tolerate that plus the losing beyond this season. I wasn't able to confirm it, but I think this also might be the final year of that extension. So she's on the ropes, I would say. And I think a lot of people expect that job to open.
Yeah. And while we're on the subject of Penn State, it's worth noting that the product did not get her revenge over Rutgers over the weekend. So for those of you who think the grass is greener on the other side and want to enter that transfer portal, doesn't always pan out that way, does it, Mitch?
Nope, it does not. Doesn't always work that way. The other hot seat to watch is Yale. I think that the curtain is closing for Dalila Eshe, who has been there for 4 seasons and has been very bad. Quite frankly, as a head coach, they have never had a winning season. They are 4-12 so far this year. They are on pace for their 3rd consecutive season with single-digit wins, which is not what you want. And especially it's not what you want, I think, 2 things. One, Yale is, I think we would agree, like one of sort of the signature brands of the Ivy League, but not in women's basketball. As the Ivy League has sort of grown into one of the best mid-major conferences in the sport, Yale has kind of been over here, and it's been Princeton and Harvard and Columbia carrying the torch. The other thing is their AD is on the Division I selection committee. And, she goes into those rooms and hasn't had anything positive really to talk about when it comes to her team. She is also somebody who, I think this was Yale student newspaper, did kind of a big, expose into sort of the program culture, and it seems to be not good there. 3 players since 2024 have quit the team, and another was kicked off the squad. One of the players who was no longer on the team was the Ivy League's co-defensive player of the year in 2023. And these players that left Yale, they haven't resurfaced anywhere else. Like, they stayed in school, but just quit the basketball team.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So in a league where, and like, if that job opens, it's going to be it's going to be like a sought after jobs in terms of assistant coaches like looking to get their first head coaching gig, or maybe like a Division III head coach looking to kind of make the jump up. That's kind of, I think, the type of profile that they're looking for there. So it'll be something it's a job that'll be wanted on a certain tier.
You said it, when you're a mid-major, but you sent 3 teams to the NCAA tournament last year, and you're Yale, a team that consistently wins the men's basketball tournament in the Ivy League, and your football team, you pride yourself as the football entity in the Ivy League. It's kind of like, and I say this occasionally on this show, people here in the state of Florida, where I'm coming at you from, ask me all the time, why is Florida women's basketball unsuccessful, at least by the standard and the measurement of the South Carolinas of the world, the Texases of the world, because Florida plays in the SEC. The basketball team just won a national championship on the men's side. The football team has the pedigree, even if they haven't won anything really of late. And so why does it not work for women's basketball? And I feel like it's the same way with Yale, I would think, within their own walls, especially.
Florida is one that is worth monitoring.
Okay. We got a little scoopage from Mr. Mitch Northam as we round out this week.
I haven't heard anything concrete there yet, but I mean, people have been monitoring it since last season. So,
well, it's because it's a marquee institution in the world of athletics. Yeah. Independent of what the women's basketball team has done historically, it is a brand. And kind of like what we talk about with Texas Tech, Texas Tech was able in football and basketball, whether you believe they bought their teams or not, to be top 15 outfits last year in basketball, this year in basketball, this year in football. And so why was it not working in women's basketball? And now they start the season 19-0, even though they're now 19-1. So similar but different vibes with Yale and with Florida to be sure.
Florida started SEC play 0-1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then beat Missouri most recently. But they're about to play LSU, Texas, Vanderbilt, and I think that's going to be 3 more losses. And then it's going to be another really disappointing season for the Gators, even though they have a really talented player in Liv McGill. But I think that if that job were to open, there's going to be a lot of interested candidates.
One more note, it is Rocky, the Beers brother, who did sign in the transfer via the transfer portal from Colorado State with Oklahoma, but he had his official visit this weekend and attended that LSU game. And so that's why the official Oklahoma women's basketball account tweeted out the picture. 2 beers better than 1. Well said. Bad day to be a Beers, though, when you are facing Flau'jae Johnson and LSU. Did I do that right, Mitch? Did I do that right?
I think so.
All right, let's keep it moving. It's time for everyone's favorite segment here on the Women's Basketball Podcast.
Pure beef.
Our Beef of the Week animation. Maybe you want to check out our friends over at auditoryfx.com. You can make your podcast sound bigger and more professional. All the audio tools you need to take your show to the next level. The perfect gift, in case you forgot to give a Christmas gift for the podcaster in your life, or maybe there's a birthday coming around the corner. Packages start as low as $19.99 with auditoryfx.com. The portal window is on the move. And I know every basketball coach I've spoken with, Mitch, has been very excited about this. But I'm curious, you've spoken, and I'm pretty sure on the record with more than one. What did they have to say about the transfer portal window moving after the national championship and Final Four weekend?
So there are a lot of coaches that are, hooting and hollering and celebrating this and loving it and think it's great. Vic Schaefer was somebody I asked about this after the South Carolina game, and he was like, I'm fired up, and, explained why it's a good thing. Just to kind of walk this out a little bit.
Like that too, by the way. I'm fired up.
Just to kind of walk this out. Yeah. The transfer portal window in last year, it opened basically sort of by a team basis. When your team's season ended, whether that was Selection Sunday, because you didn't get selected in the NCAA tournament, or at the Final Four, the day after, the transfer portal opened for your roster. And I believe it was open for 45 days or something. It basically went all the way through April into May. And now once you're in the portal, you can take your time in terms of committing to a school or whatever and choosing. Now, the portal will not open for anybody until the day after the national championship game, and it will be open for 15 days. And so there were a lot of coaches that, celebrated this and thought it was a good move. I talked to Seton Hall's Tony Bozzella, who was on the committee that kind of helped come up with, this change and the structure and stuff like that. I think what the common kind of thread was from all the coaches that I talked to was there's still challenges and there's still some issues and there's still some work to be done. And there is not one solution that is going to solve the problems for everybody. So the first kind of pushback I got from, this being all sunshines and rainbows was from Jeff Walls. Who I asked about this after the NC State game.
I think he's made an appearance or two in Beef of the Week over the
he basically said it doesn't go far enough. And the structure that he would do if he were kind of the arbiter of this and the czar of women's college basketball rulemaking is he would go back to basically the format of the portal opens when your season ends, but it's only open for 7 days. And you have 7 days if you're a player to decide whether you're coming or going. And his point was, by the time we get to March, these players all know whether they're staying or going anyways. And so that is the thing that he wanted to do. And basically his kind of reasoning was, as a coach, whether your season ends at the Final Four or, on Selection Sunday, it would be nice at the end of that 7 days to know, all right, these players aren't coming back.
Right.
And these are the ones who are staying. And now I have something to work with as March and April progress in terms of where I need to fill holes.
But does that also mean it's in that 7-day window that you have to start signing players and start that process of evaluating players that are in the portal?
Well, only if their season ends the same time as yours. Because like I said, once you're in the portal, like you basically have an unlimited time to commit to a different school. But he's basically arguing, we should shorten the window of when they're allowed to make the decision of when to go into the portal. And his rationale being they already know by like February or even now. I've heard from some coaches who are hearing from some of these amateur agents now, telling them, hey, my player is going to enter the portal. Would you be interested? And it puts coaches in a really awkward spot because number one, it's tampering, it's breaking the rules, but everybody does it. But number two, it's like, okay, so if I take this player, number one, are you going to do to me what you're doing now to this other coach next year? Also, I probably want to find out a little bit more about this player in terms of like what kind of player they are in practice in the locker room. And so a lot of times when a player goes into the portal and, teams want to, get them and know what they're about, they'll call the other coach and say, hey, I know so-and-so's in the portal, just trying to find a little bit more out about her. It's hard to do that in January. They call up another coach and say, hey, your player's agent is telling me. It puts coaches in a really awkward spot. So I got this. I'll read you one of the responses I got from Fairfield coach Carly Thibault-Dudanis. I asked her kind of what challenges still exist. And she said, several challenges remain in managing the portal, with agent involvement among the most significant. Unlike professional sports leagues, collegiate athletics lacks effective mechanisms to regulate agents, making oversight particularly difficult. Although schools and student athletes are prohibited from engaging in direct contact until a student athlete officially enters the transfer portal, agents are frequently facilitating early contact to gauge interest, which is what I just explained. In professional sports, such activity would constitute tampering and carry meaningful consequences. In the collegiate space, however, this behavior exists in a gray area that allows transfer-related communication to occur before the portal officially opens. This issue affects all levels of college athletics, but is especially problematic for mid-major programs where Power 4 schools often express interest in top-performing student athletes before those athletes have entered the portal or even indicated an intention to do so. So that is, I think, the next big conundrum. I mean, it's not next, it's already happening with the transfer portal. And it kind of brings us back to what a lot of people talk with college athletics is there's really no way to stop this amateur agent stuff from happening until you recognize the athletes as employees and allow them to have a collective bargaining agreement. And then, like the NFL and the NBA and all these other institutions, you can set up a certification for agents, and you can approve and deny agents based on their, qualifications and expertise. So until that happens, this problem will continue to exist.
So the beef, I would argue, this week is more with the amateur agents that will continue, even with the transfer portal moving. This idea of tampering, it doesn't resolve the issue at all. It will continue. If anything, all we're doing, as was communicated to me by multiple coaches, is number one, we are easing the burden of during Final Four weekend, in which so many coaches have to step out of meetings, step out of speaking engagements because they have to be recruiting already. And so we're easing that load on coaches. And that's the obvious part of it. And then second, to your point, Mitch, because this was brought up to me a couple of weeks ago too, with the tampering from the agents or the player, for what it's worth, or assistant coaches, it's funny, and I loved this line from a coach, that when it comes to high school recruitment, you need to know their social security number, their blood type, their grandmother's cousin twice removed. But when it comes to recruiting in the portal, you find their name, their age, their height, their weight, and you say, okay, yeah, cool, we'll take them.
Yeah, I think the problem that this particular move of the portal solves is, yes, you don't have to, it puts everybody on a level playing field. Like, I know, like, we don't have to feel sorry for UConn or South Carolina for making the Final Four. But it allows everybody to have the same starting point, which is the day after the national championship game. So you don't have to balance, hey, my team is playing in the Sweet 16, but I know that this senior is leaving and I have a hole to fill and this player is in the portal and I would really like to have her on my team next year. And so now I have to bring her on a visit days before we play in the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight or the Final Four. And that has been an issue. And I also think another, sort of layer to this is a lot of coaches have felt in the past couple of years, all these coaches go to the WBCA coaches convention at the Final Four, and a lot of them feel like they haven't been able to fully participate in that because they're on Zoom calls or looking at their phone in the portal, and they got to step out, and I got to call this transfer, and I got to call this transfer, and I need to go meet with this person. And so that has been a hurdle as well. And I think it's a lot of the same problems that I've heard, the split zone duo guys or, the college football inquirer guys talk about what college football coaches have to deal with. Same thing's happening in basketball where everything is kind of getting truncated in March instead of, for those guys, it's December.
Speaking of March, it's time, folks. We always love to plug Mitch's work at USA Today, and his work at USA Today includes Bubble Watch. Again, it's January 19th as we are recording this podcast, and Mitch is going to be keeping you up to the minute updated over at usatoday.com with which teams he believes are in the field of 68, which teams are out. And so we're going to do a little Bubble Watch here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. We've got one team that the stock arrow faces up, one that is stock down, one team that needs help to get into the tournament if the season were to end today. And finally, and I love this one, Mitch, the don't do anything stupid team. The floor is yours.
So, I'll be doing this every week. I've done 2 of them so far. Basically a bracket watch thing every week where I've been projecting the top 16 seeds, the teams that will host during opening weekend. And then I'm doing a bubble watch at the end where I'm talking about the last 4 teams in and the first 4 teams out. So your big stock up this week is Georgia, who I had as a last 4 team in last week. But I think now they are safely in the field after getting a upset win over Ole Miss, which gets Georgia its first quad 1 win of the season. And I've talked a lot about how soft Georgia's non-conference schedule is. They are if you look at the net non-conference strength of schedule rankings, Georgia is 342nd. They played an absolutely cupcake schedule in the non-con. However, they've done okay in SEC play. And getting that win over Ole Miss is a big boost for them. They are now 36th in the net, which I think puts you, solidly in the field. They are only 80. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong metric. I'm looking at the big NCAA.org nitty gritty page that has all the numbers and all the things on it. They are 33rd in WAB, which is wins above bubble, which is a new metric this year that the committee, I think, is going to weigh very heavily. But yeah, they have a quad 1 win now, and they are 14-0 in your quad 3 and quad 4 games, which means they haven't lost any games that they haven't lost to any teams that they shouldn't have lost to, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So Georgia, big stock up this week, really solid win over Ole Miss. It's a signature win, quad 1 win. That is a really good resume booster for them.
And a shout out to Cedar Rapids native Katie Abrahamson Henderson, who we may or may not have featured in the hot seat segment a few weeks ago. Trending up as well.
I think her seat is cooling. And if they make the tournament, she'll be safe.
Shout out to Coach Abe. Who is your stock down this week?
Stock down is Miami, which just lost a game to North Carolina. Miami is, I want to talk about Miami because I was told by several people that they have one of the most expensive rosters in the ACC this season. They went into the portal and they did some work. They got Rashea Kyle, they got Gal Raviv, they got a couple other pieces. But so far, their last 4 games, they've lost 3 of their last 4. They lost to Clemson, they lost to Louisville, and they lost to North Carolina. Their only win in that stretch is over Florida State, which is absolutely not going to be an NCAA tournament team. Miami right now is 46th in net, which is definitely bubble territory. They are 0-5 in quad one games, which is really not good. They are 51st in WAB, which is not great either. That puts you, I think, on the wrong side of the bubble. And yeah, so Miami, like they're a team that their stock is definitely down right now. I think if the season ended today, they would be out of the field. They have work to do, right? They need to probably get a signature win somewhere. I just don't really know where it's going to come from. They're going to play at Notre Dame. I would expect Notre Dame to have a bounce back win after they're getting slaughtered by UConn right now. And then beyond that, they play home against Duke. And they play home against Stanford. I think those are probably their only opportunities left to get quad one wins. And Miami needs to not lose any games it shouldn't lose. Like if they lose to SMU, that would be very, very bad. If they lost to Boston College, if they lost their second game to Florida State, one of those games, if they lose their season finale at Georgia Tech, and we've seen Georgia Tech be plucky this season. So Miami is a team that stock is currently down, but not totally dead in the water yet.
I can't speak to the money number, but I can tell you that, yes, Trisha Cullip had to completely remake that roster. Last year, she kind of kept what Katie Meyer had left over, didn't really recruit over anybody, and made it a point of emphasis this offseason to really hone in on her type of player. So, yes, would definitely be not exactly the best step forward in her going into her third season at the helm of that program in Coral Gables. As for your team that needs help, it's another team that's coach has been featured on our hot seat segment a time or two before, Mitch, and that is
your Virginia Cavaliers, who I think it would be very important for Coach Mox to make the tournament this year. Virginia is 38th in net. They are, however, the metric that is really troublesome is they are 62nd in WAB, which is not good.
Why might that be? Why would they have a higher net, but then the WAB is not, for those who may be unfamiliar?
So the WAB is weighed, basically, it's like a projection. It's how many wins would you have over teams that are basically projected to be on the bubble at this time. And so their WAB right now is minus 0.74. So basically that formula is predicting that Virginia wouldn't beat any teams that are on the bubble right now. Or any team that would make the NCAA tournament field right now. Virginia also hurting their resume. Not only do they not have any quad one wins, they're 0-3 in quad one, but they have a quad 4 loss because they lost at home to UMBC, which is, again, been not good for their resume. Virginia is 5-2 in ACC play. They've kind of beaten who they are supposed to beat. I think a key game for them coming up is they're going to play at home against NC State next Sunday. That would be a big opportunity for them. That would be, depending on where NC State is, maybe a quad 1 or a quad 2 win. They have some other opportunities down the stretch. They still have to play Notre Dame and at Stanford, and then at home against North Carolina and at Louisville. So they have some opportunities there, but like if all those games go south, that's not going to be good. So Virginia needs to win some signature games and get a quad 1 win or two to really, I think, help their case.
And the Who's are one team that, while I don't know if we know the actual dollar number, we know that they got a lot of money. They got that Serena Williams, Alex Ohanian, her husband, money. So yeah, they got the
Virginia,
money.
yeah.
Need to see the return on investment. Wahoos. Final team in this week's Bubble Watch Bracket Watch from USA Today's Mitch Northam. This is the team that we file under Don't Do Anything Stupid, which before you tell us who that team is, Mitch, I just want to say our preview episodes, we certainly didn't give you your flowers, Big East. We may or may not have just skipped you entirely because we said it's UConn and it's everyone else. But Mitch, you're telling me that there's a chance 3 teams from the Big East could get into the NCAA tournament if they don't do anything stupid?
I think so. I think Villanova is safely in the field right now. as the second best team in the Big East. And I think right behind them is Seton Hall. It's funny. I talked to Tony Bozzella last week about the portal, and then I kind of asked him about his team and stuff. And he was like, look, like the hard thing about the Big East is like, we know that we're not getting the, what's it called? No, basically like UConn is winning the league, right?
Oh,
so we're not getting
the quad one opportunities.
The automatic win. We're not getting the automatic bid into the tournament, right? So we have to make sure that our resume is good enough to earn us an at-large. And I think Villanova, their resume is good enough. Villanova is 37th in net, 37th in WAB, and they have a quad one win, and they have 3 quad two wins. Villanova or Seton Hall rather, is a little bit further down. They're 48th in net. They are doing what they're supposed to do in terms of winning the games they're supposed to win. They are 13-1 in quad 3 and quad 4 games. They don't have any quad 1 wins though. They're 0-4 in quad 1 games. They had some opportunities in the non-con. They lost by single digits to Princeton, to Columbia, and to NC State. They did get a nice win over Auburn, which Auburn just beat Alabama. So if Auburn gets another solid win or two, that's a win that could elevate in terms of stature. That could kind of pay off down the road. I think Seton Hall from here, like I said, they need to not do anything stupid. So don't lose any games you're not supposed to lose. So if I just kind of bring up Seton Hall's schedule real quick, they're going to play at home against UConn next Sunday. That's a loss, right? We can all agree. And then they're going to play Villanova at the end of February. That's a home game as well. If they can win all those other games, they've already beaten Marquette this year. If they can win at St. John's, if they can win all their other Big East games, I think they're going to be in a good position to make the NCAA tournament. And then, you go into the Big East tournament, if they can get to the semifinals or even the final against UConn, that will bode really well for them as well. So Seton Hall, take care of business. We know you're going to lose to UConn. That's okay. Just get the job done on every other level, and we'll see 3 Big East teams in the tournament.
Just don't do anything stupid, Pirates.
Don't do anything stupid. Don't lose to DePaul. Don't lose to Xavier. Don't lose to Butler.
Easy.
Yeah.
It's that easy. Speaking of easy, making money with Mitch these days is very easy because, folks, this man is 21-6 on the college basketball season. Yes, hand raise, pump it up, burrito lift, whatever you want to call it. 2-1 last week, with the one loss coming courtesy of our friend who was a nominee for this week's Beef of the Week, our friend Coach Yo in Oxford, Mississippi, who had issues with the AP poll voters and then promptly lost to Georgia big time.
Coach Yo, we don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it anymore.
Coach Yo, you cost Mitch a 3-0 week. In order for him to go 3-0 this week, who do we have on the docket?
First up, I think I'm going to this game.
You get to see Iowa. My friends. Very exciting.
Yeah, Iowa at Maryland on Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern on NBC. Maryland is currently a 2.5-point favorite. I know Iowa is ahead of them in the AP poll and all the other stuff. I think Maryland is going to have a bounce-back win at home after getting shellacked by UCLA. So I'm going to take Maryland in the points, 2.5. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think Maryland pulls out the win.
Yeah, Iowa has played with fire, including, I forget if they were tied. I think they were up 4 at Northwestern last Monday, and maybe it's just because it was an unorthodox Monday night matchup, but that was a little concerning. They pulled away from Michigan State on Sunday at night as well, which really stunk that they put a top 15 showdown at 8 o'clock on BTN during NFL playoffs, but I digress. At least it wasn't on Baller TV and it wasn't on Flow Hoops. So
that's right.
Or even ESPN or BTN Plus. So it's all good. But yeah, I think this is a Hawkeyes team that they recognize that they are outperforming expectations, and they understand that, and it's crazy to say, because a lot of people are saying it about the other team I cover in the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is the worst roster Jan Jensen is going to have for the next 3 years, which is a scary prospect if everything.
And it's not that bad. It's not that bad of a roster.
It's a great roster. And the fact that you're getting production from your freshmen the way that they are, I mean, dude, Addie Deal arrived over the last 2-3 games. The way that she's been able to light it up from 3-point range, the Caitlin Clark distance, it's back in play, which I never thought I'd say that again in my life at Carver Hawkeye Arena. They're getting significant minutes from Journey Houston, the true freshman forward out of Davenport. And yeah, the vibes are great. I know Ava Hyden's kind of been up and down when she's gone up against a little bit tougher competition, but she's only a sophomore.
Good showing against Michigan State.
I loved it. And it was a good Hannah Stolke game. And I do think that that's going to be the X factor. Kylie Feuerbach coming back after the new year from injury was also critical for this Iowa team. And yeah, I'm excited to see how that one shakes out. And I appreciate you bringing up Maryland, because I was going to bring it up in last call. Instead, we'll bury it in Making Money with Mitch. Final score, UCLA 97, Maryland 67, but we don't need to talk about that. Who is number 2 in this week's 3-pack?
Just real quick. On Iowa and Maryland, I do think kind of the thing to watch is going to be the post play, because Iowa has Hannah Stolke and Ava Hyden, and Maryland post depth a little shaky. So we'll see how that shakes out. That would be where I would watch. Okay, yeah, game 2. This is Saturday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus. West Virginia is at BYU. The line I'm currently seeing on Mass Heat is West Virginia favored by 10.5. And I'm not sure about that. West Virginia hasn't been great on the road. This is a cross-country trip. I don't think BYU is all that bad. Like, they shouldn't be 10.5-point home underdogs. BYU should at least cover the spread in this game. So I'm taking BYU to cover 10.5.
Cougars have won 2 of their last 5, but that includes knocking off Molly Miller's previously undefeated Arizona State squad.
Mm-hmm.
Their L's to Olivia Miles and TCU. They got run out the building. At Arizona by 3, and then home against Baylor, and that was by 11. So yes, Cougars have been active, but of course, I do think the folks out in the desert / the odds makers, maybe they're still living off the Greenbrier 5.
That's right.
Everyone loves the Greenbrier 5. Everyone loves that story forever. Last pick of the week for you, Mitch, is
Vanderbilt at South Carolina, Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern on the mothership ESPN.
I hope people are watching video, because my reaction when I just saw this line, like, there ain't no way. There ain't no way.
Yeah, this is the line that I saw. South Carolina favored by 16.5 points. I do think this is where the winning streak comes to an end for Vanderbilt, but I don't think it's going to be by this margin. I think it'll be within single digits. I would be very surprised if South Carolina blew Vanderbilt out. So I'm taking Vanderbilt to cover 16.5.
Let's talk about the doors. Let's talk about Shea Ralph. We haven't had a chance to dive into them. I feel like if they are able to just cover the spread next week, let alone if they upset South Carolina, they're going to lead next week's program. They, again, are one of 2 undefeated teams in the country. UConn is the other. Why, after losing Camille Pierre to the portal, is this Vanderbilt team in Michaela Blake's second season a better version of what we saw a season ago?
Well, I think Michaela Blake's is better than she was last year. She's taken a little bit of a leap. Several of her statistics are up. I think mostly in terms of like efficiency, like we see her assists up, her turnovers down, her field goal percentage slightly up. She also, like, there are other players on Vanderbilt that have stepped up. One of them is a freshman in Aubrey Galvin, who is, I think, top 5 in the nation in assists per game. She's averaging, she's 12th, 6.3 a game, which would be, one of the tops in the SEC. Justine Pissot, she's healthy and playing well. They're getting some good stuff from Sasha Washington and Jada Brown and Mwenatanda. It's just, I think that Shea Ralph is a pretty good coach. I think she knows what she's doing. And I think in some of these games, like, she's going to outcoach some people. And also, like, when you just have a player like Michaela Blake's, who can turn it on and fill it up, and there's not really a whole lot opposing defenses can do, you're going to be in position to win a lot of games. So I think that's the leap forward for Vanderbilt. They've they've done a really good job. Their defensive numbers are pretty solid, but really offensively is kind of where they're shining. They're top 16 in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, effective field goal percentage, points per scoring attempt, points per play. Offensively, like they are a powerhouse. I think that they are firmly in line to host games during the opening weekend of the tournament. I think there's also a chance like we could see them playing on Sunday in Greenville in the SEC title game. Like they're that good. Like I think they've proven it. They do still have to play South Carolina and Texas. They got some other, tough games on their schedule. I think they have I think Kentucky is the team they play twice this year. Yeah, Kentucky is the team that Vanderbilt has to play twice, so they get them twice down the stretch. They're going to get Tennessee and Killikim again. So they got some tough games down the stretch, but I like what we've seen so far from Vanderbilt. Just came off a big win over Michigan. Has that win over LSU. They're legit. Like we don't have to question anymore. I think whether or not like the winning streak was a fluke or whatever. Like they're a legit good SEC team.
And while we're making money with Mitch, I do want to note, while our friend Audie Crooks has seen her season average decline to 26.9 points per game, the Iowa State forward still leads the country in scoring. Hannah Hidalgo is third at 25. And at number 2, Michaela Blake's averaging 25.6 points per game. And so I hope we don't jinx her, perhaps the way we did Audie Crooks and her supporting cast. Maybe you want to sprinkle a little something on Michaela Blake's National Player of the Year, maybe, possibly?
Yeah. So I checked the odds yesterday. Audie Crooks has dropped to 3rd in Player of the Year odds now. Sarah Strong is your favorite once again. Michaela Blake's 2nd.
Windhorse meme fingers.
I think Michaela Blake's is like plus 450 right now or something like that. So, yes, might be worth a sprinkle.
File that one away. Also file away Mitch's 3 picks this week. He's got Maryland, a 2.5-point home favorite against Iowa Thursday night. He has BYU covering a 10.5-point spread at home against West Virginia. And the undefeated Doors, Shea Ralph's Vanderbilt squad, going into South Kakalaka, covering a 16.5-point spread Sunday afternoon. Time for last call. Any of the teams that we may have missed in today's episode. I do want to note that we have been tracking the game that was in progress when we began today's recording. Final score, UConn 85, Notre Dame 47. Hang the banner. The Fighting Irish only trailed by 10 at the break, but they ended up losing 85-47, and UConn and Vanderbilt remain the 2 lone undefeated teams in the nation.
So Notre Dame did not cover the spread.
No, they did not. So Mitch is officially 2-1, which we had already accounted into his overall record. Speaking of teams that were undefeated, we didn't mention Texas Tech, who saw their 19-game win streak come to a close at the hands of K-State. We know you fans out there in Little Apple land, you enjoy this podcast sometimes. You hate us sometimes. You come after Mitch and his mentions quite frequently. I don't know what to make of Kansas State. They beat Ole Miss, but now Georgia can beat Ole Miss. And now they're beating Texas Tech. Like, I don't know. The Cats confuse me.
It's been a very weird season for Kansas State. They're 10-9. They're part of kind of that messy middle in the Big 12 this year. I mean, this is a team that, yes, they beat Ole Miss and they beat Texas Tech most recently. They also lost to South Dakota and they lost to Texas A&M. And they lost
South Dakota State, folks. South Dakota.
And they lost to Green Bay. And they lost to South Dakota State also. They lost to both South Dakotas. So, it's been a weird year for the Fighting Jeff Middies out there.
Yikes. Big yikes. I mean, look, they're a team in transition. They obviously lost a couple of players, both to graduation and to the WNBA ranks as well. So we'll give you that, K-State. But, kind of a wacky 25-26 so far. This one I had to fit in just because you are a Steelers fan, Mitch. Mm-hmm. Georgia, not only is Coach Abe and friends getting the stock up from USA Today and Mitch Northam this week, Mike Tomlin is also in the stands because his daughter is a part of the Georgia gymnastics team. He looks like he has slept a full 8 hours for the first time in the last 19 years. He's in the stands at basketball games at UGA. He's, of course, at the gymnastics meets. So just wanted to shout out Mike Tomlin, who in his whatever this next year is going to entail for him is supporting women's sports. We see you. We appreciate you.
Mike Tomlin, forever grateful. 2008 was really fun. I was in high school for that Super Bowl. A couple seasons after that, really fun wins over the Ravens, but it was time. I'm glad that he resigned instead of like being forced out or getting fired. But I think the Steelers need a hard reset. I also hope that Mike Tomlin does not coach in the NFL again. I would like to see him just remain as an ex-Steelers coach.
And just go be on TV and then support his kids' college athletics and rap careers.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, prove to me that you're going to be good on TV, because I keep hearing that you're going to be this great TV personality. I brought this up to Dimitri and Ovius for OG on Business. Everybody keeps saying Mike Tomlin is going to be like the next John Madden and going to be great on TV. I love Mike Tomlin. I'm just not sure what evidence there is that points to him being great on TV. So show me. We'll see.
Hey, shameless plug. Producer Dimitri wrote about it at Awful Announcing, and it's going to be coming out later this week. So Mitch has inspired a column as well.
Good.
And I think Mike Tomlin, apparently his boy is Jay Glazer, from what Peter Schrager of ESPN has reported. So maybe Fox is the move because he's already got friends built in. Maybe it's CBS because his predecessor, Bill Cowher, is there. Maybe that's too much of a weird situation, but there is an open seat with Matt Ryan now, the president of the Falcons. But this is a women's basketball podcast, not
also
NFL. We could talk forever about that.
Just one more. It's time for Terry Bradshaw to step away.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's
so maybe Tomlin, he could go do studio show. I think he'd be better in studio than in the booth.
I think that's the plan. No, not a booth. I think the plan is studio, but I look forward to reading Dimitri's column, and I look forward to hearing your comments off the air, Mitch, because I agree. I think studio is the way to go. Go to Fox, hang out with Jay Glazer, go lift with him, whatever. And yes, Terry, thank you for your service as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers salute you. The nation salutes you. It's time, my friend, and it's okay. Be like Jimmy Johnson. Go retire to the Keys and just, live your life. He'll be locked in. Jimmy will be, and probably Terry too, if he knows where he is, on the national championship game, which will occur in a few minutes after we get done recording this podcast. And what better way to close tonight's episode, Mitch, than with this? Elijah Surratt, the star receiver for Indiana, who began his college career. I had to inform people at the gym about this morning. Began his college career at St. Francis, which is now a D3 program. Transfers to James Madison. Now he's at Indiana. He's on the verge of potentially winning a national title tonight. I got Jaguars players coming up to me and asking about him. Where is he projected? Because they think he's a baller. Do you think we could pick him up because he's that good? And he also named his dog after Caitlin Clark. So now Caitlin Clark has to root for Indiana, which she has said is awkward, but it's Indianapolis and Indiana fever. So as long as they're not playing Iowa, yes, she will root for the Hoosiers. Also because she thinks Signetti is a machine. And now she has Cece the dog to root for as well.
We'll see. I don't know. I think Miami's going to cover. I think it's going to be close.
I think Signetti is out for blood. And
yes,
it's too bad that he does not want to coach in the NFL, because I would love to see what just sheer havoc he would wreak on the National Football League. Maybe he wants to coach women's basketball at some point, or at least pop on this podcast, because I feel like he would be so awkward that it would be fun to interview.
Yeah. Signetti, come on the pod and then coach the Steelers.
Google us, Sig. Google us. All right. Anything else, Mitch? What is your programming schedule? I know you're headed to Maryland potentially on Thursday. What other games will you be hitting up this week?
Listeners can also hear me. I'm going to be on WUNC's Due South this week, talking about how flag football is now an NCAA emerging sport for women. So I'm going to talk about that. Later this week, I'm heading to a press conference in Durham for their new AUSL softball team that is going to play at Duke this summer. And then, I'm going to go to Maryland, Iowa. And then we'll see what the weekend holds.
Love it. I am filling in as the color analyst for a couple of men's games here in Jacksonville, but also looking forward to the ASUN tournament, which I will be reminding everybody about shamelessly on this podcast, because I know there's a couple of friends in Jacksonville who have gotten into women's hoops because we do this podcast. Make sure you go out, you support your local conference tournament, whether you're in Jacksonville or somewhere else. We really appreciate
Jacksonville, Priscilla Williams. Is that her name? 44 points? Yeah, I saw that.
I was on the call over Central Arkansas, 20 of 22, I believe it was, from free throw land. It was an incredible showing from the well-traveled sixth-year senior, who, of course, was a McDonald's All-American, top 10 recruit. started her career at Syracuse, was at Oregon, South Florida, wrapping up her career at Jacksonville University. And yes, dropped 44 on Central Arkansas on Thursday. And then promptly on Saturday, she had the first double-double in quite some time, or not first 20 and 20 double-double in JU women's basketball history. But on the other side for North Alabama, Alexandra Alvarado went crazy, 35 points. San Francisco State transfer. So there's your mid-major shout as well from the games that I called this past week. And looking forward to some more great games. Both of our local women's basketball squads are on the road for the next 2 weeks. And we could do a whole episode on what I've heard, not just here locally, but from some other teams. These mid-major conferences and some of the scheduling, not exactly the best for the athletes' bodies and recovery time and scout time. But yeah, we could do a whole episode about that at some point down the road. Until next week, he is Mitch. I am Mia, saying we will catch you later.
Deuces.